I'm trying to remember the theme song to David the Gnome, but I, for some reason, keep coming back to uh, Gummy Bears. David the
Look
Gnome.
around you. There are many things to see. Some was I can't remember the words now, but I know that it's a really pretty song. These things I know. Do me so. Chosen wizards and fairy kings, birds that talk and fish that sing. If your
We found
heart
it.
is true, you will find them too. Hey, I don't care if you found it. Let me live in.
No, it's going through the wrong device.
Look around you. There are many things to see that some would say could never be. These things I know.
It's a good thing we don't make any money.
When I will tell you so, they are there to see if you believe. Trolls and wizards and fairy kings, birds that talk and fish that sing. And if your heart is true, then you will find them too. In every wish and dream and happy home, you will find the kingdom of the gnomes.
Apparently,
Ta-da.
the adventure that it was stolen from was Kangaroo Adventure.
Well, that's that episode, yes. But
It was a very positive episode too, because if you noticed, I don't think there was anybody skinny in that video, unless they were an animal.
David didn't know that was a show. That's like my childhood. Like
It was on for 6.5 months.
I know
One
it's
season.
funny.
That's it.
That's scary. Actually, it technically had 2 seasons. Oh wait, number of series 2. What?
Oh,
Number of episodes,
because
26.
it was European. I
There
think it
we
was
go.
European based, so the so
Yeah,
it was
got it.
more of
That's
series
right.
which are shorter, usually shorter.
Yeah, yeah.
So on IMDb, it has a 7.4 out of 10. On TV.com, it has an 8.2. 93% of Google users like the particular show, and yet it was incredibly short-lived. Like, I barely remember it. I never recall watching it. So
I watched it, but I must have watched it in syndicate. Well, I guess I could have been. No, that doesn't make sense.
it
It
aired
might
in
have been so.
85. So
I know. I would have been like 5 or 6 years old. That's.
You're the target audience.
Yes, I would have been the target audience at the time. It was on Nickelodeon. I remember that.
What I need to do.
Oh, it didn't come to the U.S. television until 1987.
I would have been in high school. So, yeah. That's why I don't really remember it.
God. Aired a lot, apparently.
You might not be able to see this all too well, but it's got the.
I don't know how I feel about this with the subject matter today.
Oh.
Well, it's also almost Halloween, so.
Well, that's true to a point.
Oh my God.
But seriously, when the first time I saw that, I just immediately my first thought was David the Gnome.
Not quite.
Yeah, I don't think that David the Gnome just had a blue tunic.
What are you doing? Dang. What in the world?
Stop it. There you go. No. Okay. There we are. Need to find a better way to store this fucker.
What's that?
The cord is just all it's wrapping around itself because I store it,
Oh.
Oh well. Oh well.
You could tuck it behind. Okay. Let me go
Dick
to
for me? Are you going to
here.
be a dick? Yes, you're going to be a dick. Fine.
Not in a good way.
No, not in a good way. No.
What the frig? No.
What?
Edit. What? Oh, you son of a bitch. I hate Windows.
That's
Apparently, I don't know the difference between edit and rename.
okay.
Let me go here and...
Well, hello.
So,
It's me.
I'm guessing Owen isn't old enough to know David the Gnome.
You really expect people to be old enough?
What?
What?
It's a suggestion. Anyways,
I already got one.
are you still there, Drew, with us? I don't know. He hasn't said anything about it.
Yes.
Okay. No success?
Looks like I'm trying to do a driver right now to see if that works.
Okay.
Wow.
Whoa, what? Do you want to make changes in your device? Sure, but I don't want it running right now.
I can breathe heavy if you want, so you know I'm here.
Oh, golly, Miss Molly. No. And on that note, I'm going to turn it off.
And Drew's muted.
I think you guys are just too young to know David the Gnome. Again, it was only on for like 6 months. So.
I remember it, I just never watched it.
I'm more referring
Sorry, I killed it.
to Lloyd and Owen in the chat. We're just... Oh, these young kids these days don't know the good television shows. Like the original He-Man and She-Ra. The
Oh my
original
gosh.
Transformers. The
My
best
God.
Transformers movie was the one from 1985.
God. No. No. No.
Know the facts that I'm saying, or know the voice I was using?
The voice, dear.
Okay.
The voice. No.
Drivers are installing now.
Oh my gosh.
Drive, we will
That's-
never stop. We will never
So
slow down.
twisted. Oh man.
Just forget about the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe movie. It was a lark, but I mean, the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special, I think I actually like squeed when I saw a DVD of it at Fry's. The original She-Ra had the better animation for transformation. Personal opinion, of course. Haven't there been rumors that they were going to make a He-Man for Netflix too? After the success of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
I don't remember.
Well, let's see. Kevin Smith announces anime He-Man series for Netflix.
Yay.
If Kevin Smith does it, it's going to be boss ass.
Well, like most things in life, I'm holding until it gets released to kind of say
Yeah.
anything.
Although we like the She-Ra.
I had mixed feelings on She-Ra.
I actually liked it. Because I took it for what it was. As opposed to a straight up remake. I was just like, they're just making their own story, which is fine. There's a lot of stuff there that they added and changed in some ways to kind of make it a little more modern. Because, heaven forbid, every woman looks the same so that they can make the dolls really easily.
Oh, yeah.
Body, head, hair.
Apparently. So, this looks like they're going to do it's basically going to be a sequel to the original 80s show.
Okay. Can any of us remember how He-Man ended?
Yeah, they stopped showing it.
He started dating Man of War.
Oh, I think we all would remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. As Prince Adam, he was very stereotypical. I'm just saying.
Power bottom.
Wouldn't be surprised.
So then, what is it? Is it Ram Man? Is that like his friend with benefits?
No, it still could be Man of War.
That's his master daddy.
Oh, he's in a poly relationship. I gotcha.
Oh my god.
Ooh, speaking of such things, I'm thinking I want to reach out and have Ed on again. Ed, who is pursuing his
He was in
PhD in
town.
sexuality.
Actually, didn't he get his PhD in sexuality? Was that completed that? I could be wrong. I
Think so. I think he got his master's.
He was in town. We flirted on Growler. It was awesome.
But
Unfortunately, we didn't get to meet up. Sad part.
I recently saw an amazing graphic called "The Landscape of Modern Relationships," and it was a whole ton of like overlapping bubbles in varying ways, and it showed like polyandry and polyamory and polygamy and like monogamy, like you name it, everything was listed on it. It was pretty interesting, and it made me think of him, and I was like, oh, maybe we should have him back and talk about all the different types of relationships.
Shouldn't we have a sex therapist on for our Let's Talk About Sex series?
Yeah.
He could be our Dr. Ruth.
And if you're listening to this, it has nothing to do with your height. Just for the record.
Yeah.
Purely just
I didn't even think about that. But
I don't think I was on that episode.
he's adorable.
What?
You were on the
Ed was
episode with Ed?
I don't think so.
You
But it
just
could be
went-
wrong.
Hang on.
I don't remember any of this.
Cisco.
And I know I just turned 30, but, I still have somewhat of a memory.
Well, Mr. always searches for things when we come up with some sort of thing we need to search for. You could just search for it and
I'm sure I
verify.
Real.
I am sure I could.
The Decline of Gay Bars, November of 2017. Ed was our guest.
Oh my gosh, it was 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I don't think I was on that
It
episode.
was the episode right after the Klondikes.
I don't think I was on that one either.
What?
I think I missed
What
a couple
episode
of
number was it?
episodes.
What episode number was it?
441.
41.
Now everybody's like probably going to the Matrix to look.
Nope. I was not on that episode, y'all.
He was not on that episode.
Nope.
Well, it's
That
good
was
to know
when we were
you actually paid attention to the episodes you're not on. Oh, David's out on assignment.
See? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
Man at Arms, not Man of War.
November 19th, 2017.
Sorry,
That
side note.
Uh,
I was just looking at chat.
Refresh.
Okay, I have to restart Skype. I will be right back.
Okay.
Please hold.
I don't remember what was going on that weekend. Who knows? And my calendar's not helping.
Okay. That lead in didn't help. All right. Go back. All it says is Damon unavailable.
I'm trying to look now.
It wasn't around your birthday.
No, it was after my birthday. It may have been Chorus Retreat, but I don't think I sang the Chorus concert in November or in 2017. Because sometimes it's usually Retreat. It may be Tri-State, but that doesn't sound right either.
OTR Midwest Bear Fest was the last. That was the last one we did. Was 2 years ago. So you, me, and Chester were there. That's when we did the cookies, all that jazz.
Where the fuck was I? It's so sad that I can't remember that. You know, what'd be really awesome is if I can go to like Facebook.
I don't know, a calendar or something.
I looked at the calendar on my phone, bitch, and it was empty because I've got a new phone, so it doesn't have the stuff from then.
Aren't you like syncing your Google Calendar or some other calendar?
Okay,
Or is it
yes.
just the internal calendar that's not synced to anything but your phone?
Okay, Damon, you marked yourself as unavailable from the 16th through the 19th for 4 days.
Now I know why. Okay, I was in Atlanta. That's right.
That's so funny. Like, all I gotta tell you is the number of days you're gone, and then click.
Yep.
You knew where he was.
Mm-hmm. Now I remember.
Because the previous month you were gone the 26th through the 31st for almost like a whole week. So that was birthday.
Yeah, that was birthday. And then
okay. That's funny.
And then 2017. Yeah, that was Atlanta. That was the last time I went to Atlanta with my friends. And okay.
Underground. Lloyd, are you like minding the gap? Is that what that means?
What?
I don't know. Lloyd said in the chat, right? Going underground back in 30. I don't know what that means.
Oh, he's going on the subway there. Right? Yeah. They call that underground. Right?
Yeah. Of course, any subway is usually underground because it's a subway.
Yes. I get it. Yeah.
And you don't have to get into any sort of fed space to do it.
But cha. Well, should we start this show? Or are we waiting? No, we're waiting for Drew. Never mind. Never mind. I know where I'm at. I know what's going on.
Let's see. Should we get started? Oh, the guest isn't here? Well, not that big a deal.
I know what's going on. I know how this goes.
Let me do this.
I need a new podcast player for the website.
Oh, that's right. Damon, you're not available next Sunday because of
retreat.
Yes.
What is retreat, y'all?
Okay. Such great podcasting right now.
Yeah.
I know, right? So awesome. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. Oh, yeah. I like that. I know Lloyd's not here, but I do appreciate his comment. New She-Ra had better representation than pretty much all of Netflix combined.
Wow.
I mean, not necessarily wrong.
I mean, you have Bo's dads.
Yeah, you had varying shapes and sizes of people. You had very no one was kind of a la like Steven Universe. There was no like. There weren't jokes about people's size and weight and whatnot, for the most part, if I remember correctly. It was all about, like, no one was seen as ugly or gross or weird. Well, never mind. That's not true. There was some weirdness going on. But
Well, there was
They
no
were-
real comments about looks.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I'm busy messaging people at the moment.
No, I have the music from
David
I
Deno.
have not David the Gnome, but the like He-Man generic background music, which was kind of like just like different tones of the theme.
Oh.
Man, the music back in the 80s cartoons. I thought I heard us playing in the background somewhere.
I'm listening to something and I'm got myself muted and I'm hoping you can hear it.
Nope, it's definitely us.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
We
you.
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
You sound a little quiet, but yeah.
And no luck.
No.
Well,
Rude.
I got your gnome picture, so we're fine. All right. Since we've got determined we can't resolve the issue right now, which is fine. It's fine. We're not that professional of a podcast anyways. And even on sometimes when a guest comes on a professional podcast, they can't get their camera working anyways. I say we do a show. What do you think?
Yes.
We should get this ball
Yes.
rolling. All right.
Let's get this started.
All right. Where we are. You got your... I made a plan, so I'm sticking to it.
Yes.
So if you don't like it, tough luck. I'm the
Oh
producer.
God.
All right.
There you guys are.
There. All right, here we go. And in 3, and 1. It's October 27th, 2019. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
I don't brew the tea, I just serve it.
And that makes me Gary.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
Welcome to Comes Out Loud, the Bear Podcast of Determined Links, episode number 529. And in this episode, we have a guest, Drew, who we couldn't get the camera working, so he's looking like David the Gnome.
Papa Gnome in the house.
Child.
Welcome, Drew.
Thanks.
These things I know. Anyway.
Well, in any case, in this episode, it is one of these.
Let's talk about sex.
Although, to be fair, we're kind of talking about the lack of? Question mark?
You know what? For someone who didn't know jack shit about what we're going to talk about today, you just like put it right there. You just kind of like.
Well, it's like I know what the words mean. Or I know what what the specific phrase means. It's just I'm having a hard time comprehending this, like how somebody would be labeled like this. It's hard. I'm just having difficulty.
To be fair, we're gonna get into the definition and stuff. I think it's self-chosen as a label, kind of like bear or cub or daddy.
Yeah.
So
It's
I mean,
be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
We're laughing now, but we probably won't be laughing later. Just saying.
well, it's not going to end in tears as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason to cry.
No, it ain't.
No, just tea.
All right. So, for those of you that have already seen the title of the show, you're probably like, "What the?" So, I guess we're gonna put our preface, our disclaimer at the beginning of the show right now. Welcome to a show about four guys talking about something they really don't know anything about, but we go break it down. Well, we're gonna break it down and kind of go over some generalizations, I guess. So, yeah, it's let's talk about sex, and as Jeff said, it's kind of like let's talk about not sex. So incels, INCELS, for those of you that don't know quite what that is, for spelling, is a portmanteau, which is like a combination of words of involuntary celibates. So you may have heard of this before, and probably not in a good way. We'll end up discussing some of that, I'm sure. So incels are individuals that define themselves as unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. A state that they describe as inceldom. Not inceldom. That's probably something completely different.
How would that work?
I have the sign-up sheet.
Oh my gosh, Drew!
Wow. Well, I was thinking that the dom makes the person not,
No,
feel
No,
the
There's
thing.
no military dom.
no, we're not gonna break this down.
Look, let's just refer to the fact that Damon is currently wearing a Consent is My Foreplay shirt, which means that it wouldn't be involuntary for it because he would have had to provide consent before the Dom enforced the celibacy on the sub. So
Good.
that would not be
Fine.
involuntary. It would be voluntary
So,
because
yeah.
they provided consent.
Yes,
If it's
Yes.
a good dynamic.
yes. Like that would kind of. I mean, Jeff kind of hit it on the head. It's very. No, I don't. I can't honestly see it being possible for an involuntary celibacy in a DS kind of relationship, because in some way, shape, or form, someone is consenting to a command or request. You know,
They've agreed to be in the DS relationship, thereby
Providing
given a
by
some
volunteering.
sort of-
Nullifying all
so-
terms and agreements and hereby a signed contract.
jeez Louise. Honey.
See, that's
All
that's how to get in out of it.
All right.
All right. So here's the dealio, and I want to like kind of give some folks some historical reference only because where things are in the modern day now is not where things are when this term kind of got coined and how things came about. And I think it's really important because I want us to talk more about the concept of incel versus the politics of it. And I'll probably get into that a little bit. So for those that aren't aware, back in 1993, a Canadian university student, only known by her first name, Alana, created a website to discuss her sexual inactivity with other people. And the website was titled Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project and was used by all genders to share their thoughts and experiences. And then in 97, she made a mailing list of the topic, abbreviated INVCEL. And then later it was took the V out and it was called Incel. So she stopped participating in her online project around 2000 after she realized she was queer and became comfortable with her own identity. And supposedly, according to Wikipedia, gave the site to a stranger. Now, why you would do that, I don't know on the internet. But in 2018, she said it definitely was not a bunch of guys blaming women for their problems, which is kind of the current version or concept people have of incels. So knowing that historical, I was kind of like, okay, that's very interesting because to me, conceptually, feeling like people don't find you sexually desirable and you feel like you're in involuntary celibacy, like it's being forced upon you by society at large or other people, I get that. The misogyny and all the rest of the stuff that's come about and like people claiming it and then doing horrible acts in the name of it is a whole other piece of whatever.
So when we first started, when we first started talking about this as a topic, that was the thing I thought about this was. Like, I thought this was generally just like that whole like perception, misconception, ideal that you are not considered attractive or desired, therefore you are in this involuntary celibate, moment where you don't, engage in activity with other people because of this like self-loathing, and it kind of, circles and cycles around in that well. That's when we first started talking about this topic, that was the first thing that came to my mind as what this was. And again, reading more into it and learning more about it, I've learned that that's not the full picture.
Right. So before we get into why Drew is a part of the show, I want to talk just in general about this concept because there are times in my life I kind of felt this way. And by that, I mean, I felt that people didn't find me desirable. So I felt like, therefore, I was forced into being celibate. Like, do you know what I mean? Like being or asexual or something. Like, I know that's not the right term to use, but you know what I mean?
Right,
like I felt like nobody was expressing interest, even if I was expressing interest outward. Like it wasn't being reciprocated. So I kind of felt like I was being, I don't want to say punished or anything, but I think there's a point where you're kind of like, all right, you can only take so many declines, no's, no responses, whatever. New phone, who dis? And then you're kind of like, what gives?
Yeah, and you mentioned it. Asexuality is basically kind of the opposite view of incels, because incels are thinking it's not because I don't want to, it's just I am, and asexuals are just I don't want to. Period.
Right. It's my choice versus it's not my choice.
Good point, Drew. Yeah.
Choice is kind of the point, that the big thing of the matter here is it's for a lot of these, for this incel mind, is that they're not choosing to be celibate. They believe that the choice has been made for them.
Right.
Like no one will find me attractive, no one finds me desirable, therefore I will never be able to do or be with someone in a sexual, passionate, or romantic way. Which, I mean, I think in some ways you kind of maybe had those thoughts, especially, around as you were learning yourself about your own sexuality and your desires personally. You may have kind of felt that way, like no one finds me interesting or attractive. You're a I'll just use bears and us and me and for an example. Some of us were awkward, geeky, sometimes bigger, type guys, and that's not what was seen as attractive, on TV and on popular culture, in popular culture, etc. So you did not see yourself as someone who would be desired by others or wanted by others. So maybe you didn't go obviously down the full like slippery slope into incel, but you were very much like that. No one's going to be able to do anything with me because I'm never going to find someone, and blah blah blah, so forth and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gary. I think some of us have had that mental like framework where it's, again, like I call it the cycle of like, I'm striking out left and right. No one's finding me attractive. No one's finding me interesting. I'm trying to talk to people. I'm putting myself out there and I keep getting, knocked down. So I don't end up being with someone. I end up being alone, and maybe I'll be forever alone. And then, oh, well, maybe I'll try again. And again, the cycle repeats itself. And I know there was a time. No, not really. Actually, I think when I was in high school, I was very much like a not active person, but that was because I wasn't sure exactly who and what I desired. I knew I had some attractions to men, but I wasn't 100% sure about that. And obviously my background would not allow that. So I was like, well, let me see if I can try to be with women. And that didn't happen or work out in any way, shape, or form. I mean, thank God. But, well, no, that's not true. I'm not going to say it like that. but, like, woo, yeah, I know now, knowing now what I know, if I had known now what I knew then, or you got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
anyway.
I think growing up, everyone has at least a small part of that happen to them as you mature and grow older and learn about yourself and others and have those doubts about yourself about, am I going to be alone the rest of my life? What's wrong with me? Any of this. I mean, finding ways to deal with that and realize, you grow and evolve, and then some people trying to find a way just to blame why you feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
think
think Go ahead, Damon.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that like it's interesting now to know at this point in my age, like that there's a term in a way that kind of describes this concept. But I think there's a big difference between like the feeling of it versus claiming it versus like being labeled it. So, like, I mean, and part of me thinks sometimes like when you feel this way that you may not have found your tribe, like as the current zeitgeist kind of references things, like where do you fit in? Have you found your thing, whatever that is? For us, we come very much biased from a certain perspective. Maybe, it's about BDSM, which involves leather and kink, or maybe it's, you haven't determined that you're more comfortable being a furry, or that you actually kind of are more in between all the things and don't necessarily have one specific, primary kind of thing that calls to you. And that's a journey that we all take in our lives. Like I came out my freshman year in college and then was like, oh, okay, I sort of feel better about myself, but I also don't like myself. And to be fair, like the gay community was a bit tumultuous in a way, I think, at that time. It is not what it is now, where I think there's a lot more positivity to things. This is pre-internet. We didn't have, the It Gets Better campaign at all of these out celebrities. So you really kind of felt still repressed in that time frame. And it wasn't until 7 years later that I found out about the bear community, and then I was kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of feel like I have a place. It was a bit overwhelming at first because when I found that place, it was a complete like 180, like where I felt like I went into a gay bar and no one really ever paid attention to me or gave me like the time of day or nothing. And then showing up at like a bear potluck activity and everyone being like, oh, who's the new meat?
Who that? Who
Right.
that? Who that? Mm.
Right. So that was
Getting all the whiffs.
yeah, that was a bit of a mind fuck.
So it's the difference between like discovering yourself, like there's something missing and you're not getting what you're expecting, and trying to find that place, which is more of, I would almost say, dry spell or just discovery phase of your life, versus the, oh yeah, I know what I want, I know what I'm comfortable with. It's just I'm not finding those partners to be with, whether it's sexually, romantically, or what have you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's something that we're not aware of, that there are those things that exist specifically about the, like, well, maybe if you are into like sociology and psychology, you might be more aware of like the chapters of a human life and like, discovery and those kind of things. But I think in the lay way, I knew nothing about that. That was a thing that was expected and to go through. And so, and I'm not saying that this, I don't think it's something that everybody necessarily goes through. As a point of clarification, I think there are some people that smoothly transition from like discovering themselves and their identity and then having no concerns or issues, or I don't want to say problems, but they just don't have that experience. They put themselves out there and people respond. In a positive way or whatever. So, that being said, Drew's a guest on the show because he actually reached out to me. This was quite some time ago. But I wasn't really aware of incels, honestly, Drew, until you said something. And then I was like, wait, what? And then, like, the more I learned a little bit about it, I think around the time that you had reached out to me, soon after, I was kind of like, oh, but I learned a lot more about I guess I don't want to call it political, but like the not so great side of it, like in terms of the attitude and like, there's a whole online culture and it's,
anger and hatred and
yeah. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I think I was a little gun shy on the concept because I was like, I don't know how to talk about it other than maybe sounding like we're all like, what a bunch of bullshit.
We're all confused. Yeah, because you said it, and it's one of those things where I think there's some people where will think of things, especially like this sort of thing, I think. Think, what? No, that's not possible, or complete denial of it. And in me, it was just, I just sat back and was like, I'm having a hard time grasping the concept. Like, how does that work? And while some people are just like complete denial over like its existence, that's a bullshit thing. And I'm like, well, maybe there's a real thing, but I can't grasp it. Like, this is to kind of connect it to other experiences like this, is non-binary. When I first found out about that, I was like having a hard time grasping it, just because my life has always been binary to begin with. And
but I also think that in your case, and everybody's cases, there's phases to everything. How far you get through to one to the other, where you may have gone through quickly is like, yeah, that's why I don't understand it, because I get A, I'm already to Z. Where me, even though I've been I guess, single 15 plus years, I can see where a lot of this if I wanted to call myself that, it's because it's more of my choosing now, which now then doesn't make it involuntary. I know it's because of some of my choices. So I can't choose that, but there's a lot of people who don't get to that point to have that realization that, the way I present myself or how I come off to people or how I treat people or anything like that has an effect on how I'm interacting, how I'm connecting with other people. So for you're already past that. You were like that blip. Yeah, I'm done. I get it. So to see other people who don't, you're like, it's not that hard. So it's interesting because I know even at 52, occasionally I think and I have those questions that pop in. It's like, is this ever going to happen? But then I know myself, it's not for me to blame anything else, but just to understand where I'm at in my position in life, what I'm willing to and not accept in my life or people wise. So it's a big gray area.
And I think even those people who labels themselves as an incel probably aren't in that phase where they haven't like done some self-examination, being like, well, is there things that I'm doing that I'm choosing that is really actually making this more of a voluntary thing, or am I just feeling like I'm trying everything I possibly can and just I'm not getting any hits? And
right, and with the conversation, Gary, and I've got some examples from. I've met 3 different people who have tried to identify like this. So we can get into that a little bit later, but.
Well, no, like that's kind of the whole thing. Is I guess what surprised me about it initially was I presumed that it was in a binary concept, a heterosexual male issue, like that they feel rejected, that they feel, that women just don't find them desirable, blah, 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 blah. And I was just kind of like, and I honestly, I was just like writing it off to like, okay, girl, whatever, you and your drama. Like,
Fair.
Well, I was just kind of like, you're probably not looking in the correct places, or you're, being very insular in your world. And then recently, I just watched the TV show episode. For those of you that watched it, you'll know what I'm talking about on How to Get Away with Murder on ABC. There was a client who was found to be an incel. And they actually discuss it like briefly as a part of the plot subject. And I was kind of like, okay, Shonda Rhimes, you go. Like, like she just kind of brought that up out of the blue. And I was kind of like, oh, that's ironic.
It's also funny that you mentioned that, Gary, because I actually watched an episode of one of my favorite shows, Law and Order SVU, in which this was a topic. There was a whole episode about someone who was an incel, and they were doing things like this to get back at it. It was very interesting watching the episode because they brought this in as part of the topic of the reasons for why it happened, but it wasn't because they were all apparently, to summarize the episode really quickly, it was 3 men that had agreed to basically target people that were in relation to someone else, one of the other guys. So like this guy was shunned by this woman, so this guy will attack her. And then that would be kind of the things. That way they couldn't get caught, whatever. And it just was very interesting. They were all a part of this incel community, online community. And that's how the police kind of put it all together. It was funny.
That's kind of based off some stuff that actually happened in California too.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing about getting back at the girls who turned them down and catfishing them, to teach them a lesson to be nicer to guys and insane.
Yeah, it's scary. It was very interesting because that's kind of when I mean, not recently, but as I read more, and then this episode especially kind of brought this whole like other side to involuntary incels that I wasn't 100% aware of, and I'm like, oh, well, this isn't necessarily I don't want to say bright and sunny, like this wasn't going to be a bright and sunny topic, but this wasn't a totally like, oh, I get that there's another side to this. There's a definite like darker potentially, more violent part of this. So, yeah.
Kind of a sexual frustration thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's natural. Like I don't want to say natural. I think that's possible with anything. Like you could claim anything, to be a motivation as to why you do something that's like hurtful to another individual. So,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that was so like, and I think like that's what most people are kind of aware when it comes to the concept of being an incel, or is that they feel like they have to claim it because it's been thrust upon them because no one's, I guess, like reciprocating or seeing them a certain way. I don't know. So, Drew, let's talk about like the experiences, or I'm going to apologize for this. I didn't realize there was more than one person. I thought there was just like the one.
No,
the
it
one
was
guy.
one, and there's been two other sets. The other one I just blew off because I can get into that, but I just want to make one thing clear too: is there are some legitimate incels that are specifically deal with medical reasons, physical reasons why they can't find themselves or be in an intimate relationship, whether it's drug, physical problems. I mean, so there's a legitimacy there at some level for some, but I think that taking it over and trying to claim it for something or making it fit, I just see it as of trying to not really understanding the term or trying to misuse it to fit what you're feeling. So just put that out there. So the first time I came across this was a gentleman I was talking with online, who then decided to tell me, well, he's an incel. I'm like, you are? So I tried to dive into it because the way he was talking, it didn't make sense to me. And he went on and then tried to explain, well, because of his religious belief, he's just not going to have sex until he's in a relationship and all this other stuff. I'm like, so you're actually confusing, abstinence with being an incel. That's your choosing. You're choosing not to do that. You're not being forced to not be intimate with somebody because they're out there. They are. You're saying no. So that was a choice. So that was the first time I had this, I don't get it.
Interaction.
You don't understand of using a term that you don't have any knowledge of, but it means I'm celibate because I don't have a choice. I'm like, well, you do have a choice. So after about 30 minutes of conversation with him, it kind of got through to him. And he understood. I said, well, then maybe I'm not. And in my head, I'm just going, oh my God. And
thank God.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
So, and then the second time it happened, this is probably about a year ago now. First one's about a year and a half. This other guy, but he claimed he was forced into being celibate, and he never, I guess, initially used the word incel, but he kept saying how he's forced to be celibate and he can't do this. But it always seemed like his conversations were always angry. He always complained because he couldn't hook up on the apps. Nobody wanted him on the apps. And it was just always this negative stuff. But then when you look at his profile, it's all no fats, no femmes, no oldies. And I'm like, oldies? What am I, a 45 record? I mean, but I mean, he had this list of things that were absolute no's. And it was just all a very negative portrayal of himself. And my thought was like, well, if you're going to come off as sort of angry and very demeaning of other people, I'm not going to find that attractive in you. So for him to sit there and saying he's being forced at because nobody likes him or wants to even give him a chance, is where I had another encounter like that.
Quick
Quick
footnote for all you young people. A 45 was this vinyl record that
my God.
at 45 RPM rotations per minute that you would put on a record player and a needle and it would play. It's kind of like a DVD, except instead of a light, it's a needle. Anyways.
And Drew could technically be spun like a 45 if you wanted to treat him that way. But
Dead or alive, baby. Spin me right round. Like a record.
See, I was thinking the exact same thing. That joke was right there.
Yep.
You can spin him
Oh
right
my
around, baby, right
God.
around.
Oh my God. You guys are awful. I'm just gonna use the
Sorry, you
I
said
mean, so
that,
those
and
are
I'm
my
like,
two main ones that I've come across. It was hard for me to understand and grasp because, like I said earlier, you sort of sometimes I can have doubts, but I know I'm past that, and I know where I'm at in my life. But I know that I'm responsible for my own happiness. So if I'm looking at a spot that all it's doing is making me upset or sad or lonely or angry, I need to change my approach of where I'm looking and what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think it was very funny that you mentioned, or not funny, but it was very interesting that you mentioned that, like, your two examples, for example, to me were not really involuntarily celibate in the grand scheme of things. They were kind of, I mean, it was religious beliefs, and like you said, that was kind of more abstinent than necessarily, involuntary. You were following a religious beliefs and tenets, and you again chose to follow those religious tenets and beliefs, and therefore you are celibate or whatever, are abstaining from sex for those reasons. And then for the second one, he's not really, I don't want to say celibate by choice. He's kind of celibate because he's a dick. But like
well,
I mean, no, never mind. His choices, his choices in how he wishes to try to find someone were, I mean, immediately, not immediately, but for the most part, were turning people away and off from him. And then you wonder why you weren't finding someone. Well, if you're kind of putting it into a very small circle of people that you want to like, you can be interested in, then, I mean, that one I could see more being more, quote unquote, involuntary celibate. In the grand scheme of things, because of the whole, like, the darker or worser things for these reasons why there are some incels are out there, the self-loathing, self-pity, or resentment and all those things.
I think it's one of those things where if you're feeling like you're an incel, you can definitely go ahead and label, but then take a moment and set back and maybe even talk to somebody, either a friend, family member, or even a therapist, to kind of examine why you're feeling that way and see if there might be something that might, break you out of that. Maybe you're feeling involuntary when you realize, oh, actually, I'm just not interested. Maybe you're actually asexual, or something. I wouldn't say it's necessarily any sort of like condition. I don't know. Any of our psychologist friends might be able to come back to us and say,
so
if this might be some sort of disorder, or possibly
it is
a disorder.
not. I mean, reading the Wikipedia page, it says involuntary celibacy is not a medical or psychological condition. Some people who identify as incels suffer from physical disabilities or psychological disorders such as depression, autism spectrum disorder, and body dysmorphic disorder. So I'm just reading the very first sentence. I didn't want to go too far into it, but that's one
fine.
of those things where it's not necessary. It is not a mental or psychological condition, but it may be
there may be other
Don't wanna say
factors
symptom.
that are getting you into that position.
Yeah,
So
there may be a
Well,
mental or physical. Go ahead.
And I think there's a big thing to like understand about, like, here are the things that probably should be considered the flags, like to be aware of, that may not be the good stuff. Apparently a lot of online communities talk about like resentment, self-pity, racism, misogyny, like narcissism, the belief that men, and it mostly is about men, which I find really interesting because it was started by a woman.
Yeah.
That the man feels that they're owed sex. There's conversations revolve around like loneliness, being unhappy, and like some of that I get, like I connect with that, like I understand like being single and being lonely and feeling like unattractive, like not everyone is, the paragon, like the ultimate of desirability. Not all of us walk around the world and have everybody spoon in our presence.
It's
So
it's the extreme form of a dry spell.
yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, like it's awkward to think of it as a dry spell, but it's like, but like I think it's a two-way street. It's kind of like how you're treating the world. Like, no offense, people find confidence sexy. We've talked about that before on this podcast. Like, there's a physicality to sexiness. Yes, you have to look at a person. You have to find them desirable. Like, is it possible to have some sex with someone who you don't find desirable? Yeah, but then you're really kind of going through the rote motion of things. At which point, personally, I'm kind of like, why? Like, just masturbate. That's just how I feel about it. So, so if you're feeling that people are not finding you desirable, that's another thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think that you may not realize that you are creating your own environment, especially when it comes to your attitude and your behavior. So if you're focusing on these like not forward evolving, human concepts, about being a better individual and being kind to people and, and being approachable and thankful. I mean, just, a whole bunch of stuff, and you're kind of like, if you're very much like self-centered, I don't know how else to say it. Like, if you're very much focused inward, then you're not giving anyone any opportunity to like be involved with you or maybe want to be interested in you.
Yeah. It's the well, I think that's kind of it. Like, to me, it's always the matter of like, what are you doing to bring yourself, out there and be available. And I know there are people out there that do try and do put themselves out there and sometimes get rejected. But the question becomes, what is part of that rejection, and how does that rejection make you feel? What are you doing to I don't want to say change yourself, but to like, maybe see some about yourself that may be difficult. The one example that Drew gave about the guy that mentions like no fats, no femmes, no oldies, et cetera, no oldies. Like, who says that? Let's put an age range and shut the fuck up.
To go back to a previous episode quickly in regards to this, some of the best things to do on your profile is don't necessarily say what you don't want, say what you're looking for specifically.
Correct. Yeah.
Because and you never know, there may be somebody that's kind of outside in the nose that you might find attractive anyways. They're a little bit heavier than normal, but hey, they're hot.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
I'm sorry. I have to derail for a second. I am so hung up on this oldies concept. I'm like, what? You hate poodle skirts? You hate guys like in biker jackets that look like James Dean? Like,
is there something wrong with the king of rock and roll? I mean,
if you got a record player, I don't want nothing to do with you.
Like, if you love the movie Grease, you are immediately written off. If you I'm just like,
I don't know how much oldies Grease is.
And then what's even worse is like, it depends on how old you are. Because I'm like, I realized we're talking sort of about the 50s. And I was just driving with my dad yesterday, doing some shopping, and there's a new radio station here locally that plays oldies. And I just realized it plays 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like, it doesn't even play the 50s. Like, so I'm like, oh dear. That's
Anyway.
So Drew, was the first guy that you spoke to, was he the one that was the most I don't want to say vocal, but like described things the most, or kind of explained things, or was the most in depth? Because I don't know, like,
he wasn't really in depth. I think he saw the term and had the word celibate in it, and he just equated it to himself because of his thing. So he threw it out there like, well, yeah, I don't really look for sex because I'm an incel. And I'm like, you don't look for sex because you're an incel.
Right.
That's
not how that works.
It's contradictory. If you look for it and don't get it, you don't look for it, you don't find it. Well, of course. But so it was, to me, it was more of just, he was open about it, but it was an open misunderstanding. He wasn't as vehement as the other guy who was like, just hating everybody, or the third guy who wasn't as bad as the second guy, but he was just like, everyone on here is too good. They're all stuck on themselves. You got to be body beautiful. And I'm not all about that. And so it wasn't the negative, no fast, no femmes, blah, blah, blah. But it was just, everybody thinks they're too good.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, why are you on here?
Or you're not looking in the right place, too.
Right. Well, that was my point. Then why are you, and I think I actually asked him, then, if you don't like who's on here, why are you on here? And he's like, well, there's nothing else around here. I'm like, well, then I got nothing to say to you. And maybe it's your attitude.
Yep. I mean, I hate being that way sometimes, but that is sometimes the case. Like, if you promote art, you will put out there a very negative, vibe and what have you, then don't be surprised if no one want to be around you. Like, I hate being that way, but that's the way I feel about it. Like, if you are negative, then no one necessarily wants to be around that. So you are kind of creating your own self-destructive path, as it were. And on the same tone, sometimes people don't need to be dicks to people. Don't mean to be like losers and whatever to people.
But I think having a self-awareness of yourself too. I mean, like that last guy, he got mad because everybody wants young Twinkie boys, and I think he was like mid-50s, late 50s, and I'm like, equate this. If you're looking, if I'm not an athletic person, I don't go to the gym, but I hang out in a gym chat room where everybody's looking for workout buddies. I'm not their type. I'm in the wrong demographic for people looking for workout buddies if I'm not a workout buddy.
And you will
you might find that attractive, but there's another area that you should probably be following instead of going in a place that's not quite, like Gary said, your tribe. I'm not going to go to a straights convention and try to hang out with the straight girls because, hey, and then complain because I don't get lucky.
Oh, well, I mean, fair, but I will hang out with straight women because they're fun sometimes.
Well, I was just thinking of it's like you go to a drag brunch, on Sunday mornings to go cruising. Right. Girl, if you're looking for a Dom Daddy, that's probably not the place you're going to find one. It's not that they don't exist. I know. Let me finish. There's probably a drag queen that also could be your Dom Daddy, but that is not the time and the place in the moment. That's what I'm getting at. She's
got that S&M performance outfit at home waiting to be used.
Well, I mean, it's like, let me go do the 5K for Alzheimer's while I'm also expecting to find, sugar daddy or sugar mama. What? Maybe, but that's probably not the path to take for that. My point of these analogies is perhaps the way you're going about things is what really should be looked at. There is a concept of luck in a way, but it's about what you're doing and how you're approaching things. That's what my experience taught me. Going out in my local community to try to meet people was one thing, but what I realized is I was kind of looking for something more, and that really didn't exist. So you've got to figure out, hopefully for yourself, if you have that experience, and now I think with the internet and technology, there's much more ability to find a tribe, but I just don't know if this concept is perhaps, the correct one for people, especially when you take it to such a negative. I hate to say turn to the dark side, but really kind of make things about, other people and how they're treating you. There is a point where, yes, that people are not always the nicest and they can be cruel. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this kind of goes back to sometimes I hear people talk about the things that happen and they're like, I got into this disagreement on Facebook or blah, 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 blah. And I'm kind of like, why? What are you doing? What are you doing? There's an old word cartoon from Dilbert that I love, and the last frame is one of my favorite things ever, and it says, sometimes when you see a pot of crazy, you don't stir it, like you just leave it alone.
That's gonna be my next.
So
You see a pot of crazy, don't stir it.
Right, like you just leave it alone. If it's gonna boil over, get the hell out of the kitchen. Avoid it. Like if you didn't create it, don't be getting involved in it. And I feel that way, like that people, I think they just don't know how to define themselves and their world enough to like put up those walls, and I don't really. Well, I guess it's walls, like to create their bubble, like to be like, what, I don't want you in my life. I don't need whatever. And it's taken me a long time to like not want to fix a lot of people or to help them really. Fix is pretty strong, but to be like
shake them, go listen.
Oh my god. True.
No, I mean, but like I have a very kind of like caring, nurturing kind of concept, but one of the things I've had to learn is like not everybody wants to be helped, and
or
not everybody
is ready to be helped,
right, and or can be helped. At least by like I have limitations. So, I've learned to just keep things at a distance and leave things as they are. And I find, people that I connect with, like the person that sits next to me at work. I would have never in a million years thought that this is a person that I would get along with. And it's not that they're a bad person. It's just like my outside perspective of them, looking at a cover of a book, which I should know better. I was like, this will be interesting, and then like that we hang, like we're at work so often and we talk a lot. And I'm just kind of like, this person's really interesting and colorful, in a way that I kind of prejudged unfairly. And like, I've realized that we kind of have the same wavelength of thought on some things about some other people at work. And so I'm kind of like, okay, like, we can commiserate on some stuff.
You're a size queen too? Oh my God.
No.
There's the van.
You know what, Drew? The invitation to be on the show was not about you being a bitch. By the way, that is not true. They identify themselves as heterosexual. So, anyways,
just because they're heterosexual doesn't mean they can't be a size queen.
Okay. I had to think about that for a moment. Anyways, my point is, like, you kind of find your place in a way if you're willing to do that. I get it. It can be tiring and exhausting, like to constantly put yourself out or to consistently do so and then feel like you're being shut down. But I think that's kind of what the broader, like the gay community and then all the subcultures within it, in some communities, it's what the bear community, it's like people find themselves. And yeah, everything's evolving and we're going through this stuff now. I mean, I think it's something we've been trying to identify on this podcast is, there's all sorts of people that are welcome to the table to have a seat. It's just about recognizing what the interest is and what's going on. I just recently met let me think about this because I'm trying to remember how they identify themselves. A non-binary queer individual who is biologically a woman in a relationship with another woman that has a child that does drag and is into leather kink and has friends in the bear community. I mean, if we're trying to do, the bingo card, I think she got a whole bunch of things checked off on that. She's not trying to. My point is, I was kind of like,
she
wow.
bingoed a couple times.
She had a whole lot of things
which
that
sounds like a sexual innuendo, but still.
Overachiever.
She using proper pronouns, they were, really interesting to talk to, but I was kind of like, oh, like, it's taken you in your own journey to like find and do this stuff. And so the reason why they are on my mind is because that probably was not an easy thing to do. I don't think it ever is for many of us. It's kind of where we come from this. And my hope is for those that like are learning about, incels and inceldom, that we're more understanding of like conceptually like what it is, a little more importantly about where it came from. Because yes, I think it's quite possible for any of us to feel like there are times, for varying lengths of time, that we just can't connect with people, or
There's many times I just can't. Has nothing to do with anything else, but I just can't.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, and I'm, going along the thread is like, this is kind of what I feel is the situation with this is they find this community, these incels find this community online or what have you. And it kind of, as I think I was reading in the Wikipedia page, like it kind of like again, draws them in, and then they find people that are of similar views and values. And unfortunately, this is the tribe that they find. And, it kind of unfortunately feeds into that negativity that they feel about themselves, because there are others that are kind of talking about and being the same thing, feeling the same ways that they are, and it can essentially go to the worst case scenarios where they we talked about that there have been mass murders and what have you based on this whole involuntary celibacy, that there are people out there that have done these things in the name or in regards to them being incel and claiming that as such.
Right. And the unfortunate side is that, what journalism has covered, I'm not going to say is unfair, but it is a little skewed, because what they're focusing on is that some incel communities are quote unquote violently misogynistic. And, that concept, that thought process, becomes part of like what people have termed or, discussed in terms of like alt-right and white supremacy, and like it overlaps with hate groups, and so there's all this stuff kind of going on. And I think what's most important is for people to understand, like, if you hear about like incels and seldom, to try to not box it, like, you know what I mean? Like, and think of it in that radical or kind of whatever concept. Because I think like it's easy to do that. In fact, as this individual I was just talking about, is we were having a discussion. I said, we live in such a concept of, our way our brains work. Everything needs to have a label. It's easier to understand it, to like, to wrap our minds around it when, I can say, oh, this individual person, I know their name is Damon, as opposed to like a symbol, that like where I have to try harder and put in more effort to be able to make a connection, a relationship of some sort. So I think it's the same thing that with individuals, that if they describe themselves this way, I'm hoping that, they are self-identifying in a way that is, positive as opposed to the negative, if that makes sense. And that people are more receptive, like, or at least willing to not, jump the gun immediately and be like, oh, great, I expect this to be nothing but, a craptastic conversation or whatever.
And so, would you consider that inceldom is possibly essentially a temporary condition?
So yes, and I would say yes and no. I mean, just reading what I'm, reading what I'm reading and knowing some of the things, and not necessarily going to the further, like the extremes, it could potentially be something that you have put upon yourself, and it could also be something that you, for one reason or another, may be a cause. Like as Drew mentioned, there are some people for medical or physical reasons or mental reasons may not be able to engage in sexual activity. And that's kind of, it's not, again, there's nothing they did per se, or, had something happen potentially. So there is a possibility that it is something that will be a permanent condition for them. On the flip of that, there are people that I think honestly are choosing to follow this path and choosing to remain in this way because it in and of itself feeds on some of their probably, thoughts and feelings about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting aspects of incels and inceldom is that there's a general, I think, understanding or acceptance that individuals who feel this way may have extreme introversion, meaning that they are so introverted that they don't see themselves being interested by anybody from the outside, but they're also not doing anything like to make that possible. So it's kind of going back to what Damon you were talking about earlier. Like it's kind of this cycle. It's kind of like nobody finds me attractive and nobody is interested in me. Therefore I don't put myself out there. Or I'm that's self insecure. I don't feel that good about myself. So you know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's a thing that could go on and become permanent, or it could be temporary, like to what you're talking about, Jeff. I think really it's undefined because it's very much like a personal journey, and whether or not you actually do anything about it, I think is the more important thing. So, like, interestingly, like we've made reference, and it'll be linked on our website about the Wikipedia that we've been referencing. What I find interesting is that it's referenced that many incels engage in self-diagnosis of mental health issues. I think that makes sense, but we have to be careful about that. I mean, it's kind of like the running joke that everybody goes to run to WebMD the moment something's wrong with them, and then you find out that one of the outcomes is death. Hello, like, yeah, everything can cause you to die eventually. So like, be careful, about finding things. I mean, I feel that way a little bit about like the bear community in some ways. Like I've met people who are kind of like, oh, the bear community isn't for me. Well, that's fine. Like, we don't make you pay dues. You don't have to get a card. Like, there's not necessarily a secret handshake.
Well, that's off my to-do list now. One less stress thing.
Well, there you go, Drew. See, like you don't have to worry about trying to get all those points to get that toaster.
3 more stamps and I had an official bear card.
Yeah.
Ooh. Bear bingo.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that.
Well, just to elaborate on something you said earlier too about finding help or have you, I think it's finding the appropriate place too, because going to like a website where you're finding other people who are just as mad or angry as you are just feeds into each other and doesn't help you to solve the problem. You just feed in, yep, I believe it. That's the same way with me. And it doesn't change anything.
And if it is something where you're feeling like that and you're getting a community, maybe one of the things is to talk with people about why do you feel that way, and see, kind of narrow down what possibly might be factors that get you into the situation, and figure ways to get out of it. Being like, okay, well, all right, so what are you interested in? And maybe even help if you help other people do some research into what might be a factor that's causing it, that's getting you into this situation, that you may find in and of yourself your solution to the situation as well.
Yeah,
because I really feel like incels is more of a. I really feel that it's like a temporary condition, because I always believe that there's always somebody out there that's attracted to you. You just need to find it. You need to get in and actually search for it.
I'll send you my resume later.
Exactly. So sometimes you just need help looking for that, or just realize, hey, my current state, financial state, or location or something. The only reason why I'm voluntary celibate is because none of the people around here are people that I would be interested in any of this way, even if I get onto the right apps or something. And then at that point, once you find the right place where you can actually talk to somebody who might be attracted to you, maybe they're halfway across the planet. But then you find out that there you are. There's somebody that's attracted to you. And while you can't necessarily meet up necessarily, I'd say necessarily way too much. It at least is, I would almost say might get you out of that, because you don't necessarily have to have physical sex to say that you're celibate, if you think about it that way. I don't know.
Right, and there are some people that, like Damon had been referenced to, there are some people that physically are, I guess I want to say, very limited in having sex, and that may be, something that's considered more permanent. But even so, I think that it's pretty, I don't want to say extreme, but specific in cases where that isn't possible. Most individuals can have a physical intimacy. It just may not be what most people think of in terms of a standard concept of a sexual, experience. I think about individuals that are differently abled. So maybe they're paralyzed, or they're paraplegic, or, there's some condition for them physically. It doesn't mean that they can't be intimate. It just may mean that the intimacy is different. So whether or not that qualifies them, what a horrible word, whether or not that applies to them in terms of the concept of being an incel, I don't know. That very much for me, this is do you apply the label to yourself? This makes me think of someone I knew a long time ago who was like, well, everyone calls me a bear, so I must be a bear. No. Just because everyone, looks at you physically and is like, oh, you must be a bear, it doesn't make you one. So I think that this really is more about self-identifying than, what other people say you are in that case.
Too true. Hey, guess what, folks? I think that's the end. Oh. Let us know what you think. Do you identify yourself as an incel? And let us know, and give us some feedback as to why you feel that way, and maybe we can give you some non-professional advice. We are not professional therapists.
No.
But you know what? There's plenty of ways to contact us to let us know that. You can pop over to our website, cubsoutloud.com, leave a comment on the blog. Shoot us an email at cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail, sexy or otherwise, at 361-COL-TALK. Yes, we'll even take serious voicemails. You don't have to be sexy. You could be absolutely serious. Ask questions vocally. You can also shoot us a voicemail to our email as well. You can find us on various social media outlets at Cubs Out Loud in the appropriate place of the URL. That's Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, YouTube. And you can also chat with us in our Entourage chat, where there's always things going on. Links shared, hot guys shared, me drooling over pictures during the World Series at tinyurl.com/telegram-COL. You can subscribe to our Google Calendar on your computer at tinyurl.com/calendar-COL. Once you've got it connected to your Google Calendar, you can then pull it up on your app. You can support us in many ways, such as getting either a Consented to Foreplay shirt that Damon is wearing, or a Not Your Sticky, Here's Your Cookie shirt that I'm wearing, as well as many others, including Taking You on a Mouth Adventure shirts. I believe I got that up, finally. Which are some newer shirts that we have, all at our Zazzle store at zazzle.com/cubsoutloud. You can also support us by just becoming a patron at patreon.com/cubsoutloud. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us through Google Play Podcasts, and also find us on Spotify. You can find me anywhere in the internet as Boxset, Box Puppy, Box Gub, Box something or other.
If you wish to find me, and you know you do, you can find me as Theater Cup 79 on most bear-related sites, and also Facebook, or you can find me as pup_umbra on Twitter.
If you would like to get in touch with me, you can pretty much find me anywhere online as GareBear73. And Drew, if anyone wants to find you, get in touch with you, actually touch you, maybe, I don't know.
D, all the above. 411 Growlers Crawl, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me as Drew the Wandering Bear.
Woo!
Yay! And with that, do I have this in the right order? I do. Say goodnight, everybody!
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one, y'all.
Yeah.
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 Sorry about the web.
Urinal? We got at least 4. That's all right.
It happens.
I liked your picture so
Again,
much.
it like
I had to use it.
But everybody's going to
Sometimes.
think I'm a silver daddy now, so.
But you are, Blanche. You are.
You don't know me.
I'm glad Damon did it. Anyways.
It's okay, Drew. It is. One of the things I've learned, especially now, is that Skype is not awesome. And because literally when I signed on, I had an update, and I was like, "Oh, great! Yay, another update!" And granted, it didn't last
How
long.
often? How often do you open Skype? I mean, seriously.
once a week.
Me, yeah. So I think the last time I did it, the light kept turning on, so somehow I turned it off. That's the last time I actually used it. Everything seemed to be powering up, and then it just all of a sudden said webcam not available, not found. So hopefully I did delete that app or something. I don't know. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next however long it takes to find it, get reinstalled on my computer.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I know Jeff mentioned it, but can other things or other programs find your camera?
Well, see, if I go to the camera itself just to turn it on outside of Skype, it says the same thing. Webcam not detected. And right in Skype, it says not detected. So, and if I go to my settings and devices, video device is not there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's probably, you may just need to get a fun new camera that you
can
can
just plug in and be done with it.
Yeah, it's probably the easiest thing to do.
Especially since it's not finding it at all. Because if nothing is finding it, then that's a sign that the camera is either damaged or something along those lines. That's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. But
my luck is I'll go buy one, plug it in, and all of a sudden, hey, you've got 2 cameras.
Well, then at that point, you can return the camera that you bought, knowing that you fixed
no.
it.
I'll keep it as a backup going forward.
Oh, well.
I should get
the
it.
one that this is the one that Gary and I use. This can you read it? Anyway, C920 HD Pro Cam from Logitech.
Yeah.
Jeff?
I have a Logitech one too. I don't know. I got it a long time ago. Hey, guess what? I'm stop streaming.